Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying, he gets reborn as Magneto inside of DC. What will Magneto do inside of DC? How will the DC universe change because of Magneto being inside of it?
Console to presentation mode. I enabled the telemetry repeater I built for supervised sessions. It pushed read-only outputs to a separate screen. It showed numbers without showing control. I opened the lift, then closed it. I stood and waited. Batman arrived first. He entered with the same weight in each step. He looked at the generator casing and the screens and then at me. He did not speak. Cyborg came next, landing lightly near the far door. He carried a compact case under one arm. He set it on the table and waited. Superman descended through the shaft and walked onto the platform without sound. He took in the room and nodded once. A projection lit the far wall. It showed Wonder Woman's face from an office at the embassy. She looked composed, alert, and ready to speak without delay. A second projection showed Jayons in a simple room aboard the watchtower. He did not intrude. He looked and listened. Superman opened the meeting. "Magneto," he said. "Thank you for hosting. You have the draft. We are here to discuss terms and reach a working agreement." "I have read it," I said. He gestured. "Your response?" "I will cooperate under boundaries," I said. "I will accept drills. I will not accept remote access." Batman's attention stayed on me. "Define drills," he said. "Quarterly scheduled drills," I said. "One per quarter. 3 hours each. Scenarios limited to defined categories: storm surge, grid overload, substation failure, gas leak protocol, bridge load under wind, hospital outage simulation. You do not request earthquake scenarios unless there is evidence of risk. You do not request civil disturbance scenarios. I do not provide those." Cyborg raised a hand slightly. "Scope accepted," he said. "We can build around that." Superman watched me and nodded. "That is reasonable." Wonder Woman's voice came through clearly. "Public safety drills in your city should involve the people who run that city," she said. "Will you include Commissioner Gordon and his departments?" "On my terms," I said. "They will receive instructions through Batman and through their own chain. I will not address them directly." She accepted that. "As long as they are not caught unprepared," she said. "They will not be," I said. Jayon's image leaned in a fraction. His tone was steady and respectful. "The watchtower will require a clear contact chain during drills and events," he said. "You will not be monitored. You will be reachable. List the order." I spoke without pause. Primary contact is Superman. Secondary is Batman. Tertiary is Cyborg. No one else. If none respond, I proceed alone. "That is acceptable," Jayon said. Cyborg opened his case and removed a small module. He placed it on the table and slid it toward me. "Telemetry gateway," he said. "It is read-only. It uses an optical diode. It sends but does not receive. It reports the 10 numbers we agreed to: power load per sector, transformer thermal headroom, bridge tension bands, rail harmonic levels, hospital district immunity status, gas sensor status, substation relay counts, counterfield percentage, and event timestamps. It has no antenna. It uses fiber to the repeater. No one can talk through it." I lifted the module into the air with a touch. It was light, simple, and built as he described. I rotated it and inspected the board. There was no hidden radio. There was no ghost trace across the side where a builder might hide an extra amplifier. It was clean. "Install it," I said. Cyborg's mouth lifted slightly. "Thank you." He plugged a fiber line into the repeater stand and affixed the diode module to a bracket under the presentation screen. The repeater lit. Numbers scrolled across the secondary panel. They matched my console. Nothing else moved. Superman gestured to the draft. Data sharing, he said. We ask for incident reports within 24 hours when you take any action beyond basic stabilization. We expect hazard summaries with cause and corrective action. We do not ask for methods. We ask for results. Accepted, I said. Wonder Woman added, we expect public honesty if a drill fails. A drill will not fail, I said. Her expression stayed neutral. Then there is no conflict, she said. Batman turned a page and pointed to a paragraph. Inspection, he said. The draft requests independent inspection by STAR. Labs or a qualified equivalent. Refused, I said. He looked at me as if he expected that. Why? They do not need to see the core to confirm safety, I said. You now have repeaters and test logs. You now have drills. You can confirm safety in practice. You do not need access to design. Superman glanced at Batman and then nodded. We can remove that clause if the drills are thorough and our readings are complete. Remove it, I said. Jayon spoke calmly. At times of crisis, decisions must be made rapidly, he said. The draft proposes a remote shutdown in the event you are incapacitated. Refused, I said. He inclined his head in acknowledgement. Then propose an alternative that still protects civilians when you are absent. I leave a manual, I said. It contains clear actions for 5 events. Fire at substation. Bridge harmonic under wind. Hospital outage. Gas leak near meter banks. Rail resonance above limit. The manual uses simple instructions. It does not expose control. It tells Batman and Cyborg what to ask me to do. If I am not present, they follow the manual using their own systems until I return. Batman considered that. You write it, he said. I already have notes. I will compile them into a document and deliver them to you two only, I said. Cyborg nodded. That works. Wonder Woman looked from one screen to the other, then to me. The League requests scheduled joint drills with city agencies once per year, she said. Public drills. People learn evacuation routes. People learn what to expect. I answered evenly. 1 public drill per year. 1 district only. Duration 1 hour. Focus on safe movement and clear announcements. No false alarms. No sirens. No blackout. No street closures beyond a few test blocks. If anyone panics, we stop. Agreed, she said. Superman moved to the next part of the document. The draft proposes a liaison, he said. A single named person who can speak for you when needed. Cyborg, I said. Cyborg blinked once, then smiled. Okay, he said. Batman accepted it without comment. Wonder Woman accepted it. Jayon accepted it. Superman turned to the last section. Contingency for hostile interference, he said. If Argus or any other group attempts to insert hardware or software into your network, you will inform the League immediately. I will inform Batman and Cyborg immediately, I said. They will inform you. I will not contact the League first. Superman measured my tone and nodded. That is fine. Batman added, we include a clause that all parties agree to keep these operations off the public record unless disclosure prevents harm. Accepted, I said. Cyborg looked at all faces and then back to me. We need a drill today to validate the repeater live, he said. Short and simple. A half-hour window. Gas training house, hospital cabinet and a bridge sway test at half load. Proceed, I said. Superman raised one hand in slight pause. Before we start, one more point, he said. Remote access. Refused, I said. I know, he said. I want it on the record. It is, I said. He looked satisfied. Then we drill. Cyborg tapped the repeater module. Live now, he said. The numbers on the secondary panel ticked forward from their baselines. He assigned labels. Sector A load. Sector B load. Harbor lift draw. Rail harmonic readout. Bridge tension. Hospital immunity. Gas sensors. Counter field percent. Events. We moved to the training rooms. Batman took the stairwell and exited ground level to keep watch. Superman took the air and matched our pace. Wonder Woman and Jaeon watched from their screens. The link maintained clarity. We entered the medical cabinet room. The equipment stood inside the cage as I left it. The readings on the repeater matched the console. Cyborg nodded. Trace is clean, he said. Proceed. Superman kept his hands at his sides. Raise field by 4% in this room for 30 seconds, he said. I did. The equipment stayed within normal limits. The repeater smiled numbers across the screen. The pacemaker simulator remained in standard range. The infusion pump delivered correct rate to its dummy load. The crash cart did nothing. Record, Wonder Woman said. Her screen marked a timestamp. Jaeon said, telemetry matches. No interference. We moved to the gas training house. Batman reported from outside. No civilians nearby. Street customary. Superman said, pulse your counter field along the wall. Hold for 20 seconds. I did. The detectors stayed silent. The repeater showed the gas sensor tile steady and green. Cyborg noted it and moved us to the bridge. We took the service walk at mid-span. Superman made wind with measured control. I balanced the span at half of the range we used for his earlier test. The counterfield registry rose 2 points and then fell. The tension boxes at each anchor reported within limits. Cyborg pointed at the repeater. It works, he said. Data is live and clean. Superman lowered his hand. Sufficient, he said. Return. We dropped to the chamber. Batman entered through the far door and joined us at the dais. He read the repeater's last line and made no comment. Superman spoke. I propose we sign the protocol today, he said. We have agreement on all sections. We will publish a short summary to local authorities and keep the rest private. Accepted, I said. Batman produced 2 copies of the protocol, printed and bound simply. He placed them on the console. Sign, he said. Superman signed with his civilian name and his league title. He kept his handwriting clean. Batman signed beneath him. Cyborg signed next. Wonder Woman's signature appeared digitally on the projection with a secure timestamp. Jaeon's appeared below. They slid the document to me. I read the final version. I verified that the removed clauses were not present. I verified that the no remote access line was present in plain language. I signed. Cyborg took a quick photo of the signatures and backed it up to the Watchtower document system and to Batman's encrypted storage and to my own archive. He handed the original to Batman. Batman kept one and handed the second to me. Superman's eyes moved to the repeater again. He listened to the room. We are done, he said. We will keep our word. You will keep your word, I said. I will keep mine. Cyborg stood with his hands on his hips. He looked content. Next steps, he said. I schedule the quarterly drills with your sign-off. I send the manual to you for final language review. I keep the repeater online and check it weekly. We build a small joint team for drill execution. Batman will handle city coordination. I will handle league tech. Send me the schedule, I said. Will do, he said. Wonder Woman inclined her head. If any drill requires public notice, I will handle press questions with the city. I will not mention you, she said. Good, I said. Jaeon said, if you require silent assistance at any time, I will provide it within the line you drew, he said. I know, I said. Batman slid the signed protocol into a rigid folder and put it inside his belt case. We are done, he said. One more item. Waller. Superman's mouth thinned slightly. She will continue, he said. Batman nodded. She tested a cabinet. She will try a truck. We will be ready. Cyborg raised a finger. I have a filter for the cloak pulse. It will ring at low volume when it detects the absence. I have it in my ear. I will put it in yours if you want it. Give it to me, Batman said. Cyborg sent him the tone pack. He sent me a copy. I installed it on my internal alert board. It sat quiet. Superman looked at me one last time. We built trust today, he said. We will keep it. I met his eyes. Do that, I said. He lifted from the platform and rose through the shaft with measured speed. He was gone in a breath. Wonder Woman's screen faded with a calm wave. Jaeon's screen faded with a nod. Cyborg packed his case and flipped the latch closed. That went better than I expected, he said. He smiled. I'll get out of your space. You are fine here, I said. He laughed quietly. I know. But I have work. He lifted and left. Batman stayed. He looked at the room and then at the panel showing the city. He placed one hand on the railing and spoke without looking at me. You kept the core intact, he said. You set terms and held them. I always hold them, I said. He gave a short nod. Good. He turned to go and stopped. He tapped his COMM. Gordon, he said. We have a drill schedule. Gordon's voice came through with a tired tone and a clear mind. I will get the captains ready, he said. No noise. No press. No panic. Batman said, I will send you a summary. Understood, Gordon said. Batman closed the line. He looked at me once and then left through the far door. He did not look back. Silence returned to the chamber. The repeater continued to scroll real numbers without heat. The generator kept its tone. I placed the signed protocol in a steel drawer and sealed it with a key under the console. I checked the grid again out of habit. The values held. The city moved. An alert chimed once with a low note. It was not a cloak. It was a standard transformer hit by a small overload on the east side. I raised my hand and bled the excess. It returned to normal. No one noticed. I logged it. The clock on the wall read late afternoon. The bay breeze pushed a shallow temperature change through the upper vents. The consoles compensated. The room stayed cool. I stood for a long time with my hand on the steel ring at the center of the dais. I did not think about the paper in the drawer. I thought about the drills and the schedule and the manual that I would compile. I thought about the city under my control. I made a list on the screen of items that required attention before the first drill. I placed times beside them. I began and worked until each box had a line through it. Chapter 21, The Room Under Arkham. The repeater scrolled clean numbers across the secondary panel. I stood at the main console and watched the drill clock count down. The League protocol sat at the edge of my vision, signed and stored. The room held a steady temperature. The generator tone was even. Cyborg hovered at the far side of the dais and checked his case. He had packed the drill modules in exact order. He glanced at me and then at the repeater. "Telemetry is clean," he said. "We can start on time." Batman stood near the cadenced tower. He had one hand on the rail and the other on a small device the size of a card. He did not move much. He looked at the numbers and the room together. "We keep it simple," he said. 15 minutes. Gas house. Hospital cabinet. Bridge sway at half strength. "Accepted," I said. Cyborg lifted his forearm and opened the drill sequence. Starting Phase 1. Gas training house. Stand by. We moved down the corridor to the drill rooms. The gas training house sat as we left it. Dummy meters in a row, line cold, no fuel. The board carried normal indicators from separate power. There was no link to any live system. "Field rays around the exterior wall for 20 seconds, Superman said through the channel. He remained at a distance, monitoring from the sky. His voice came through clearly. I raised the field. Sensors stayed quiet. The repeater marked a line that showed gas, stable. Phase 2 began. We crossed to the medical cabinet. The equipment sat inside the cage with its own supply. I increased the field by 4% for 30 seconds and held. No instrument tripped. The repeater reported hospital, stable. Batman's voice carried from the hallway. Bridges last. We hold to half. No pedestrians on the span during wind. We returned to the surface and took the service walkway. Superman set wind on the bridge to half strength. I balanced the span within normal sway. The commuter lanes remained smooth. The counterfield tile on the repeater lifted 2 points and then settled. Cyborg smiled lightly. Phase 3 complete. Final check, Batman said. The repeater drew a line for drill, complete. It stamped the time. I lowered the field to baseline. I turned back toward the lift. The alert appeared at the top of my primary panel without sound. It was not a surge. It was not a common fault. It was a drawn energy curve that did not match any scheduled test. It originated beneath Arkham Asylum and carried an identifier I recognized from a different place. It was Wayne Tech Power signature, marked with a security header that did not belong to a city department. I stopped. My eyes held on the lines. I confirmed the point. The draw increased by a small fraction every 10 seconds. The system tagged it with a Wayne Tech internal key. It was not Argus. It was not Cadmus. It was Bruce Wayne. Pause drill, Batman said immediately. He had already seen the line on the repeater. His voice stayed even, but it carried an edge of attention. Source. Beneath Arkham, I said. The draw is masked behind a security wrapper. Wayne Tech signature with a sealed header. Batman's jaw tightened. He did not raise his voice. Cyborg. I see it, Cyborg said. His hands were already moving. It's not on the public map. It's below the lowest level on city plans. It's powering up in a controlled ramp. No thermal spike. It's not a short. Lucius, Batman said. He did not add more. He opened a secure line. Cyborg pointed to the board. It's a fusion icon. That header is new to me. I held the bridge steady for a few seconds longer, then stepped off the service walk and took the lift down. Return to the chamber, I said. We gathered at the main console. The repeater marked the line as Arkham, draw. The number ticked up by 1 kilowatt, then one more, then one more. It did not jump. It rose in a steady ramp. Noise around it stayed low. Batman spoke into an encrypted channel. Lucius, he said. Lucius Fox answered at once. His voice was calm, precise, an alert. "Bruce," he said. He used the voice he used when only a handful of people could hear. "I'm on a secure line." "Wayne Tech power signature beneath Arxum," Batman said. "Not on the city map. Not on the company map. Controlled ramp." "What is it?" Lucius did not waste time. "Old containment array," he said steadily. "Prototype built to support a low-intensity fusion core for a stasis ring. It was commissioned on your order after a period of breakout incidents. It was never brought online for public use. It was mothballed and sealed." "Why is it waking?" Batman said. Lucius exhaled softly. It was not a sigh. It was a measured breath. "The core has an internal battery to maintain diagnostic circuits," he said. "It requires zero maintenance in theory. It holds a ping schedule. If it detects a clean harmonic environment over a set period, it runs a boot test. The solar storm and your new grid changed the inputs. It may have reached a threshold it had never seen." Cyborg's fingers tightened on the console. "It thinks the world is safe for a boot." "Yes," Lucius said. "That is my guess." Batman's voice stayed steady. "What is the core?" "TR-13 microfusion module," Lucius said. "It is small. It is not a weapon. It outputs a narrow controlled stream of power to a magnet ring that creates a containment plane. It was designed to hold high-energy equipment or inhuman samples. It was never used." "Authority for the array," Batman said. "Yours," Lucius said simply. "Sealed under my oversight. No one else has access." "Is it dangerous?" Batman said. "Not if we shut it down properly," Lucius said. "If we do it wrong, the containment ring could warp and dump heat into the surrounding structure. Arxum is not prepared to absorb it." Cyborg pointed to the rising line. "We need schematics." "I will send them now," Lucius said. "I will also call the Arxum administrator and authorize a maintenance inspection. No alarms. No public notice." "Do that," Batman said. The schematics appeared on the console at once. They showed a sub-basement beneath Arxum beyond the lowest recorded level, accessed through a secured shaft hidden behind a service panel that required physical keys and a biometric match to Bruce Wayne or Lucius Fox. The array sat in a circular room lined with heavy alloy plates. The core was housed in a casing that fed a magnet ring mounted around a flat assembly labeled containment plane. The feed lines ran to isolated storage capacitors. The line out to Arxum proper was disconnected in the diagram. That was a relief. Lucius continued. "This was built at a time when we needed options we did not intend to use," he said carefully. He did not name names. He did not need to. If it woke on a boot test, it will run a calibration in 3 stages and then stop. If the schedule is corrupt, it might keep running stage 1 until it sees a complete set of inputs. "What would trigger a complete set?" Batman asked. "A field that matches the magnet ring's original harmonics and a clean grid with stable frequency," Lucius said. "Your grid now provides that. It did not exist when we shut the array down." Cyborg's eyebrows lifted a fraction. "So Magneto's field helped it wake." Lucius kept his tone calm. "Unintentionally, yes. I watched the draw rise to a set point and hold. It stayed at that level for a minute and then began to climb again. Stage 2. I put a hand on the steel ring at the center of the console. I felt the city around us. I felt Arxum's steel. I could not feel the fusion core itself, but I felt the plates around it and the coils that would feed the magnet ring." "Arxum," Batman said. "I'm on the grounds already," Cyborg said. "I can be at the south service door in under a minute." "Magneto," Batman said. "I will open the doors that we need and nothing else," I said. "Lucius," Batman said. "I am on my way," Lucius said. 7 minutes by air. I am bringing the original keys in a hardware lockout. Move, Batman said. He cut the line and looked at me. We keep the city stable. We go down. We shut it down properly. No inmates disturbed. No word to staff beyond what is needed. Understood, I said. We left the base. I lifted into the air and took a direct path to Arkham's island. The cold air pushed past my faceplate without sound. The water below sat flat in long bands. The building rose in front of us, brick and steel and concrete with hardware that had been replaced too many times. I felt the plates inside it. I felt the bars. I felt the old screws that held older structures to new ones. Cyborg reached the south service door ahead of us. He waited, not touching the frame. Batman arrived on a grapple line and landed without noise. I extended a hand. The old deadbolt inside the service door spun free with a clean motion. The latch released. The door opened inward. We entered and kept to the maintenance halls. Batman moved without wasted steps. Cyborg moved with light footfalls. We reached a steel panel on a short wall with no visible handles. It carried no label. It looked like a patch over wiring. Batman pressed his gloved fingertips against the right edge and found a hidden seam. He looked at me once. I opened the locks inside the wall with a precise turn. The panel remained still. It required a key insertion through a slot that was flush with the steel. Footsteps approached. Lucius Fox walked toward us with two security personnel who did not ask questions. He wore a dark coat and carried a plain case. They stopped without entering the short hall. Lucius stepped forward alone. He offered a nod to Batman. His eyes moved to me and settled without surprise. "Good afternoon," he said evenly. "I hope we are simply being careful." "We are," Batman said. Lucius removed a narrow key from his case and slid it into a seam beside the panel. The lock cylinder turned. He placed his thumb against the steel under a small rectangle. There was a soft click. The panel hissed as a pressure seal released. He pulled it open on a hidden hinge to reveal a narrow shaft with a ladder and a secondary door 4 meters down. The air that came up from the shaft was cool and dry. It carried a faint smell of new metal. Arkham did not smell like that anywhere else. Lucius opened the secondary door with a second key and a handprint. We climbed down. The floor at the bottom was clean. The walls were bare alloy panels with a matte finish. A small screen near the next door displayed status. It read Calibration Stage 2. Lucius stepped to a wall compartment and produced an old handheld unit with a cable. He plugged it into a port. Numbers scrolled. "It is a boot routine," he said. "Stage 2 is magnet ring calibration. It is not dangerous by itself. Stage 3 runs a containment plane test for 10 seconds with no payload. That draws more power." "Shut it off," Batman said. "If I shut it off the wrong way, I risk warping the ring," Lucius said without change of tone. "I will do it the correct way." He kept his eyes on the unit and then at the screen. "We have two options. We let the boot finish its stages and then it shuts down. Or we step in and end it after stage 2. We will need to match a set of field parameters and feed a false stage 3 completed flag." Cyborg leaned in. "I can emulate a stage 3 completion on the line if you give me the protocol." Lucius considered the unit for 2 seconds. "I will give you the exact sequence. We do it only if I fail to send the same flag from the core," he said. "If we send 2 flags, the system will lock and we will be forced to do a full shutdown under time pressure. I would rather avoid that." Batman nodded. "Proceed." Lucius keyed a code. The next door opened. We entered the circular room. The core sat in a metal cradle at the center, no larger than a fuel drum, wrapped in a casing with Wayne Tech markings and a set of legacy warning labels. Heavy cable runs fed a magnet ring bolted to 6 anchor points around a flat assembly. The room was lit evenly. It looked unused. Lucius stepped to a control cabinet and opened it with another key. The interior showed switches and a small screen. He checked the status and then looked at me and Cyborg. "I will take the core to idle," he said. "Magneto, I need you to hold the ring in balance while I decouple. It will feel like a small change in force at 6 anchor points. You will keep them steady. Cyborg, you will watch the room and stop any unstable elements. If the core's output sags too quickly, you will soften the drop by taking small load into this set of capacitors." He tapped a box in the corner. "Understood," I said. "Copy," Cyborg said. Batman stood just inside the door. He watched the cables and the floor. He watched Lucius's hands. He watched the casing. He did not speak. Lucius started with a controlled sequence. He keyed a long string of commands and pressed 2 switches at once. The screen updated to service mode. He pressed a third switch and held it. The ring made a sound too low to count as a tone. It was not a hum. It was a steady pressure against the anchors. I raised both hands and held the metal in perfect alignment. It did not move. Lucius kept his finger on the switch for exactly 19 seconds. The screen changed to ring offset ready. He released the switch and toggled another. The core's output fell by a small measured amount. He watched the number and held his breath for 1 second. He pressed the switch again and let it fall another step. Cyborg walked to the capacitor rack and touched the casing. "Temperature nominal," he said. "I'll catch if you drop too fast." Lucius did not look away from the panel. "I will not drop too fast," he said. His voice stayed mild. He worked through the sequence. His hands were steady and precise. I held the 6 anchor points as the tension shifted by a small fraction from one to the next. I corrected 0.5 millimeter at a time and did not let the ring flex. The line at the core slid toward idle. The screen read calibration accept. The system presented a set of hash values. Lucius checked them and then keyed an override. He pressed 3 buttons with his forefinger, middle finger, and thumb, then turned a dial a quarter turn. The word Stage 3 appeared on the screen with a countdown. Lucius looked at me once. "Hold steady," he said. Cyborg tightened his focus. His eye glowed with a sharp light. "Ready to spoof if needed." Lucius took his handheld unit and sent a signal down the control line. The main screen responded. The word complete appeared next to Stage 3. The countdown stopped at 8 seconds. The core moved to a cool-down line at a controlled slope. Cyborg exhaled through a small smile. "Nice work." Lucius pressed 2 more switches with his palm and then flipped a cover on a larger lever. He did not pull it. He looked to Batman. "Authorization," he said. Batman gave a single nod. Lucius pulled the lever down. The room's power draw fell to baseline for lights only. The magnet ring lost its internal tension. I lowered my hands. The anchors sat in their mounts without stress. The console read shut down complete. The core entered idle. The room temperature did not change. The cables cooled. There was no noise. We stood still for a moment. I watched the repeater through the link and confirmed the power draw ended. The line on my console flattened. Arxum took no heat and no damage. No alarms had sounded anywhere. Batman asked one question. "Logs." Lucius tapped the panel. "I will pull them now," he said. He inserted a small stick into the control cabinet and copied the internal log from boot to shutdown. He removed the stick and placed it in a small metal case. He handed the case to Batman. Batman took it and slipped it into a protected pouch. "What did you find?" he asked. Lucius turned the handheld unit so we could see. The log showed the boot entry and the harmonic values that the system had measured before deciding to wake. It matched my field profile and the clean voltage profile that followed the solar storm when we synchronized with Superman. He showed the packet timestamp that matched my grid. Cyborg rubbed the side of his head with 2 fingers. It saw perfect conditions and woke up to test itself, he said. Lucius gave a small nod. That is what the log says, he said. I built the core to be very cautious. I did not account for this environment. That is my responsibility. Batman looked around the room. His gaze paused on the magnet ring and then on the flat assembly. What was this meant to hold? Lucius answered carefully. High-energy gear that could not be moved without risk. No living subject. We discussed it. We chose not to build living detention at Wayne Tech. This was laboratory infrastructure for Arxum to use with guidance. It reached planning and the early build. It never saw service. Batman's mouth shifted by a fraction. Shut it down permanently. Lucius nodded. Accepted, he said. He reached into his case and produced a hardened lockout module with a mechanical armature. He attached it to the main lever assembly and locked it with 2 keys. He turned both. The armature covered the lever and bolted into the frame. He sealed the control panel with a hardware seal and pressed a red wax emblem into the corner. He then produced another lock and bound the outer key cylinder on the door to the room. He rekeyed the inner door. He handed Batman a new key. Only you and I hold these, he said. Batman accepted the key. Document it, he said. Lucius looked at me. His expression held calm acknowledgement. Thank you, he said. Your field made this possible without stress on the ring. I held a room, I said. You held a room at the precise values I asked, he said. I appreciate precision. Cyborg stepped down from the capacitor rack and looked satisfied. No heat. No spike. No logs in Arxum security. It's like this never happened. Batman looked at Lucius. We say it never happened, he said. Lucius nodded once. Understood, he said. I will file a sealed internal note that an obsolete asset was decommissioned. I will keep it out of company audit. If anyone asks, the panel is structural reinforcement, not access. Batman turned to me. You added Arxum to your watch list, he said. It already sat on my list, I said. I will add this room's panel edges as a weak point and watch for any new field signature along this line. Lucius closed the cabinet and locked it. He looked at Batman. We should talk about other legacy projects, he said calmly. We did not build many. There are some. I will compile a confidential list. Do that, Batman said. We climbed back through the shaft. Lucius sealed the doors and reset the pressure. He pressed his hand to the steel. The panel looked like a patch again. We left the maintenance halls and returned to the service door. The Arxum security personnel who had accompanied Lucius stood at a respectful distance. He dismissed them with a few plain words about maintenance and status. They left without asking questions. Outside, the wind had cooled. The water around the island moved in low, steady lines. We did not speak until we reached the other side. Cyborg broke the quiet. I'll write a drill note that we paused and then completed, he said. I will not include Arxum. Batman agreed. Correct. Cyborg then said, I'm going to scrub Wayne Tech headers from the monitor rules to avoid noise. I will add a separate alert for anything that claims to be Wayne Tech under Arxum ground. That will go to just us 3. Do it, Batman said. Lucius looked at me and then at Batman. I will leave you 2 to coordinate, he said. I will be at the tower if needed. He gave me a brief nod. Mr. Magneto, he said politely. I appreciate steady hands. He departed in a small company craft that lifted from a flat pad on the far side of the island. Cyborg lifted into the air. "I'll run a perimeter sweep and then head back," he said. "Ping me if you see anything odd." "Yes," I said. Batman and I returned to the base. The chamber lights came up. The repeater scrolled normal values. The line labeled ARXM, draw had returned to 0. I saved the log and placed an encrypted copy in a private archive. Batman stood by the console. He looked at the signed protocol in the drawer and then at me. "We keep the agreement," he said. "We also keep each other honest." "I am honest," I said. He gave a small nod. "I know," he said. He tapped his COMM. "Cyborg." "Here," Cyborg said. "Schedule a review with Lucius for legacy projects," Batman said. "Private. No watchtower calendar." "On it," Cyborg said. Batman closed the channel and walked toward the exit. He stopped once. "We avoided attention," he said. "That is the result I want." I nodded. "That is the result I provide." He left without extra words. The door closed behind him. The generator kept its line. The air in the room stayed cool. I opened the detection layer I had built for cloak absence and added a new entry for ARXM, fusion core panel, lockout present. I set the alert to flag any anomaly within 1 meter of the panel seam. I pressed save. The city moved. The field held. The drill completed and recorded. ARXM sat quiet above a room that would not wake again. Chapter 22, The Residue in the Walls. The chamber was quiet. The repeater scrolled normal values across the secondary panel. Gotham held steady. I stood at the main console and reviewed the ARXM shutdown log again. The Wayne Tech core had gone offline without stress. The line labeled ARXM, draw stayed at 0. The signed protocol sat locked in the drawer. Batman arrived without sound. He stepped out of the side corridor and stopped a pace from the dais. His cape hung at rest. He looked at the screen. "You pulled the boot log," he said. "I did," I said. "Anything we missed?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "A calibration file." He was silent. I opened the secure copy Lucius had provided. The event stream was clean. Near the end of the boot sequence, the array checked for a biometric profile to validate a containment test. No subject existed. The system compared the request against archived calibration records. It did not find an active match. It did find 3 legacy profiles, locked and abstracted. The names were not printed. The identifiers carried timestamps and technical descriptors. I enlarged the first descriptor. Shear viscosity spike under heat. Mass refractive to standard clamps. Conductivity negligible, I read. I did not add anything else. Batman leaned closer and scanned the values himself. He did not speak for several seconds. "Clay face," he said. "Yes," I said. Cyborg dropped through the shaft and sat down lightly at the rail. He looked from Batman to the screen. "What am I looking at?" "Wayne Tech's legacy calibration," Batman said. "A profile for a high-energy subject without traditional conductivity and with non-Newtonian characteristics. Logged during the design phase. It matches clay face parameters." Cyborg grimaced. "Which one?" "Basil Carlo," Batman said. "Early version. Before he stabilized with outside sources." Cyborg moved closer and tracked the old numbers. The ring was built to test holding planes against something like him. He exhaled a brief sound of understanding. "Not to imprison him. To test if you could keep a field stable with that kind of mass against it." Batman nodded once. "Lab work. Not detention." I pressed the next descriptor. Secondary profile. Same viscosity class. Temperature curve flatter. Higher structural memory, I said. Later date. Matt Hagen, Batman said. Different mixture. Same family. The third descriptor was short and had no mass data. It listed an enzyme cocktail and a fail-safe tag on a valve checksum. It carried a note, use only in emergency testing. Applied under strict lab conditions. The note included the identifier of a retired Wayne Tech lab director. Cyborg made a face. You kept a reagent. Batman did not flinch. We kept many things we did not intend to use. This one was not deployed. I turned to him. Location, I said. He looked at the screen for the lab director's ID and then pulled a compact device from his belt. He consulted a short list he had kept out of reach of any network. He did 2 cross-references and nodded to himself. Retired lab in the Burnley district. Sub-basement under the old effect studio lease. Wayne Tech held the lease through a shell. The lab shut down after a series of incidents with imitations. The building was sold for a tax credit. The sub-basement was sealed and left out of the sale. Cyborg watched Batman enter the address in his own display. You think there's a cache? Batman looked at him. This file suggests a storage record. I need to see what remains. He glanced at me. We go now. Agreed, I said. We left the chamber and moved through the service exit. The air above the industrial blocks was cool. The sky held a low band of cloud but no rain. I rose without drawing a trace. Cyborg took an outer path along rooftops, low enough to stay inside my field and high enough not to startle anyone. Batman took the ground routes and arrived as we did. The building sat on a tired block with mixed light industrial and small lot garages. It had a clean face and new locks. The new owner had placed a fresh security sticker in a window. It did not change the age of the brick or the line of the roof. The alley at the rear showed old conduit covers and a patched door. Batman met us there. He crouched at the threshold, examined the hinge pins, and studied the frame screws. He did not touch anything. His chin dipped once. We use the sub-access, he said. He led us to a side panel disguised as a cable riser. He pressed a pad of adhesive to the corner and pulled. A sheet lifted away. Behind it sat a painted steel door with a single key cylinder and an old sensor plate. He looked at me. I spun the lock with a gentle twist. The bolt receded. He placed 2 fingers on the sensor plate and mimicked a signal he remembered. The light turned green. The door opened. A steep flight of concrete steps dropped into a tunnel with a low ceiling. The air was dry and cool. The passage was lined with old conduit and steel frames. I felt the screws and brackets. Nothing moved under us. We went to the bottom. A heavy door with a mechanical wheel waited in front of us. Batman pointed at the hinges. They used a simple gasket and a 6-pin locking wheel, he said. He pointed at 3 plates along the frame. Heat bonded. They will not let go to casual force. He looked at me. Very carefully. I touched the wheel and turned it 1 degree. The pins inside shifted. I turned another degree. The pins drew back. The gasket peeled with a soft sound. He used a hand to guide the door open in silence. He moved inside and held up 1 palm without looking back. We stopped. Cyborg whispered, "Tripwires." Batman tilted his head. "Dust line," he said. I looked closer. Fine dust had settled over years. 1 patch near the threshold had a smooth bronze shape under it the size of a coin. Batman lifted a hair from the floor, held it in the air, and let it fall. It landed, slid, and stuck where something lightly tacky held it. A sensor pad. He took a small tool from his belt and nudged the pad a millimeter to break contact. He lifted it with a thin blade. He set it aside. He sent a magnet down the door frame and picked up a second and a third pad that he saw with the corner of his eye. 3, he said. By habit, 1 obvious, 1 hidden, 1 for insurance. Cyborg's voice entered our ears through a short whisper. I'm not getting a signal on a frequency, so this probably uses a local loop. If you broke it, no one knows except the old recorder. Good, Batman said. We entered the sub-basement. The hall opened into a square room with low ceilings. Steel shelves filled one side with labeled equipment trays under plastic covers. A workbench stood against the far wall. A dry sink sat under a set of cabinets. A small industrial fridge sat in a corner behind a locked grill. A sealed steel door with a window faced us. The window was fogged from the inside with dust. Batman walked toward the bench. He did not touch it. He scanned with a small light and read the old labels. He named them calmly as he checked them. Viscosity meter. Thermal bath unit. Polymer strain frame. Wayne-Tech pre-hardened clamps. Not used for long. Cyborg moved to the fridge and checked it with a hand. No power, he said. Grill lock is mechanical. He looked at me. I bent the clip without a sound. He opened the grill and lifted the latch. The fridge opened with a soft seal release. It was empty and clean. He closed it without comment. Batman turned to the sealed steel door. He wiped the dust from the window. The room beyond was small, with the cement floor painted gray. In the center sat a shallow pit with a protective grate. A thin film coated the inside of the grate with a dull sheen. Cyborg held his breath for a half-second. That looks like residue. Batman nodded once. Clay compound. Old. It can still hold energy for a long time. I looked at the grate. The fasteners were stainless bolts. The frame was welded to a small structure that led into the pit. I extended my hand toward the bolts and turned each a fraction until I felt the weld stress. I stopped and withdrew. Batman tested the welded points with a gloved knuckle. We do not cut it yet, he said. Cyborg took out a compact sampling kit. He set it on the bench and pulled 2 swabs, a glass slide, a microamp meter, and a freeze ampoule. He moved to the viewing window, slid open a small port next to it, and fed a swab through into the room. He scraped the grate and pulled it back. He touched the residue with a second swab and set it on the slide. He put a drop from the ampoule and watched. He set the microamp meter against the slide and read small numbers. Still reactive, he said quietly. Low, but not dead. Batman's jaw moved slightly. His eyes stayed on the pit. You think there is mass below the grate? Cyborg kept his voice under control. There's a cavity. That means a collection point. If the lab used this pit after an experiment, they'd wash it down. The drain goes to a settling trap by design. That's where the batch would end if they collected for disposal. They probably sealed it and left it. Batman glanced at me. Metal frame. Thin, I said. But present. He nodded. We need the trap. Cyborg pulled up the lab diagram from the Wayne-Tech archive packet that Lucius had sent. He traced the drain line with his finger and found a box shape in the wall a meter from the floor, behind a maintenance plate. He stepped to the spot and ran a scanner. The box lit faintly. I placed my hand on the wall and felt the bolts through dust and paint. They were old. They turned with a dry resistance. I took them out slowly. Batman held the plate with his fingers and guided it free. Behind it sat a small steel tank with 2 valves and a sight glass. The sight glass was coated with old residue, but a shape moved slowly within the tank. It was small. It did not move like water. It held together. It sat, then sagged, then sat again. Cyborg swallowed. There it is, he said. It's asleep. Batman stood very still. We take this without air and light if possible. Cyborg nodded. He opened a case and removed a sealed capture cylinder, a hose, and 2 clamps. He attached the hose to the tank and the cylinder. He tightened the clamps. He opened the first valve a fraction. Nothing moved. He opened the second a fraction. The sight glass showed a slow change. The shape slid. It oozed toward the hose inlet. I felt a small pressure rise in the wall and reduced it so the tank would not flex. Batman watched the cylinder and the hose with precise attention. The shape entered the hose. It moved with grudging pace. It reached the cylinder and coiled inside. Cyborg sealed the cylinder and shut both valves. He capped the hose and sealed the tank. Cyborg held the cylinder in both hands like a fragile device. He did not shake it. He lifted it to the bench and placed it in a padded rack. It did not move. He checked the seals and nodded once. "We have it," he said. Batman went back to the sealed room and examined the grate again. He placed a finger on one weld and noticed a hairline crack. He looked at me. "Weld's held," he said. "The frame carries no load now." He pointed to the small pit. "The sample we took likely contained what mattered." Cyborg glanced at the cylinder. "We should not keep it here." "We will not," Batman said. He looked at me. "We transport it quietly. We take the fastest route. You hold the metal. I watch the seals. Cyborg monitors any charge." "Proceed," I said. Cyborg sealed the sampling kit. He locked the cylinder into the rack with a strap. He handed the rack to me. I held it inside a fixed magnetic field that did not touch the content. I lifted it 6 centimeters above the bench. It remained level. Batman checked the corridor and found nothing new. He walked us out the way we came in. He reset the dust pad and set it in a new position so he would know if someone else entered later. He closed the door and reset the bolt. I turned the wheel pins back into place. He set the adhesive square back on the surface panel. We exited the alley and moved without pause. Batman took to a private route below the street line. Cyborg rose and stayed above the buildings, a block to the south, and then dropped to keep pace along the rooftops. I flew with the rack floating beside me, behind a heat exchanger where cameras would not see a clean silhouette. We reached the industrial sector. I brought the rack into the base through the side shaft and set it on a steel table. The cylinder remained stable. Cyborg landed in the chamber and brought a portable cabinet with controlled temperature and light. He placed the cylinder inside, sealed the cabinet, and connected a low-power unit to maintain conditions. Batman entered last. He moved to the table and checked the locks again. He looked satisfied. "Next step," he said. "We need to test what we have." Cyborg frowned. "We are not doing that here," he said. "We do not need a live sample loose in this room." Batman shook his head. "We are not breaking the seal. We are scanning the sample through the cylinder. We look for signatures we can match to old case files." Cyborg nodded. "I have a probe that reads frequency response through the wall. It will not disturb it." He wheeled a scanner unit to the cabinet and placed a coupler on the outside. He tuned it and took a baseline. He pulsed a small range. The cylinder registered a faint response. He frowned in concentration and then smiled slightly. "It has a residual field. It is not magnetic. It is charge distribution along the mass. It has a baseline frequency that is unique to Carlo's form, at least compared to the samples I saw years back from GCPD." Batman's eyes narrowed. "Carlo." Cyborg adjusted the probe. "I'm 90% sure. If I had a direct comparison with the file from the old case, I could go to 95. Batman opened a secure line. "Oracle," he said. Pull the archived clay face case materials. I need the lab reports we logged 5 years ago. Carlo. Barbara's voice came through fast and efficient. On it, she said. Give me 1 minute. We waited. I watched the cylinder and the way the faintest trace ran along the wall of the container. It did not push. It did not hunt. It rested. Oracle returned. I have it, she said. Sending the frequency plots. Cyborg took the data. He overlaid it with his scan. The lines matched closely with a small drift that fit age and temperature. He gave a short nod. That's it, he said. It's Carlo mass in a dormant state. It's not enough to form a body. It's a residue. It can still respond to stimulus if mishandled. Batman said, we keep it cold and dark. We transfer it to the cave for long-term study and final disposal. It will not remain in the city archive where anyone else can find it. Cyborg agreed. I'll print the note as a post-closure clean. We keep Wayne Tekka's name off the log. Batman looked at me. We found it because of the Arxum file. That ties the two. I will not see this piece wake under anyone else's hand, I said. Cyborg checked the seals one more time. I'll call the cave, he said. I'll have the container set up. Batman sent a short message to Lucius. He wrote, found residue. Secured. Decommission lab entry in list. Lucius answered back in less than a minute. Understood. I will close the files and remove references that could draw an audit. Cyborg finished setting the cabinet to a transport mode. He strapped it to a cart with shock isolation. He looked at Batman. You want to roll it, or should I fly it? Roll, Batman said. We keep this quiet from the sky. Too many eyes. We moved it out through the service passage beneath the streets. The route curved under the industrial lines and past service valves. I adjusted pressure in 2 sections so the floor would not vibrate under the cart. Batman set a pace that did not rush and did not drag. He held one strap and kept his other hand near the cylinder. We reached a junction where the tunnel forked. Batman took the left. It led to another secure hatch. He opened it with 2 moves and a code. The door closed behind us and the light changed to a softer tone. We were on his line now. We emerged in a chamber with a different smell and different air. Rock walls. Clean platforms. The Batmobile sat under low light. Equipment hummed at the edges. Alfred's measured footstep reached us before he did. He appeared in the doorway and looked at the cart. He did not ask. He nodded to Batman and to me. Laboratory 2 is prepared, he said calmly. I will not disturb you. Cyborg wheeled the cart into the lab. He moved the cylinder from the field cabinet into an insulated compartment that belonged to the cave. It sealed with a quiet hiss. He checked 3 times. It is safe, he said. Batman stood with his hands on the bench. He looked tired in the small way he never named. He did not sit. We need a plan for disposal, he said. Nothing that risks the city. Alfred's voice carried from the door. One of the foundries still accepts hazardous polymer waste under discrete terms, he said. The furnace is sealed and monitored. They will not know what it is. They will do the job. Batman nodded. Schedule it. Very good, Alfred said. Cyborg ran one more scan for his records and then turned off the probe. I'm going to send Oracle the closure notice for the lab, he said. She'll make the public files match. Batman looked at me. You held the room at Arxum. You carried the cylinder without a tremor. Thank you. I inclined my head slightly. I will always hold what I am asked to hold if it is required and if it keeps this city stable. He nodded. We left the cave after Alfred made tea. Batman did not drink. Cyborg returned to the watchtower uplink to close his reports. I returned to my base. The repeater displayed the city again. The line marked Arxum, draw state at 0. The map showed normal load across the grid. The bridge tension sat in the band I preferred. I opened a new log entry, Wayne Tech Legacy Burnley Lab residue secured. I kept it private and shared it with Batman and Cyborg only. I wrote plainly. I did not add opinion. I added the serial number of the cylinder and the seal pattern of the cabinet. I closed the file and put a copy in a separate archive. Batman sent one line, "Good work." Cyborg added a short note, "Next time, I bring a second cylinder." That was close. I typed 2 words and sent them. Next time. Night fell without drama. The cranes worked under light. The trains kept their times. The bridges took traffic over water. The numbers across the city stayed inside their lines. I stood, listened, and corrected 3 small faults before they mattered. A panel near Park Row had a loose ground. I tightened it. A rail in the east yard ran warm. I cooled it. A junction box by the river buzzed at a tone that would have pushed an old transformer into heat. I tamed it. My hand rested on the steel ring at the center of the console. It was steady. The grid remained steady. The city remained mine to keep steady. Chapter 23, Clay returns to Gotham. The sensor grid lit at 2:14 in the morning. I stood at the primary console reviewing the night's voltage logs when the alert appeared on the lower corner of the screen, a density shift moving beneath the Burnley district. The reading was not from metal or alloy. It was biological, yet not organic in any ordinary sense. Its pattern matched the residue signature we had stored and sealed. The origin pulsed once, then again, each time closer to the coordinates of the old laboratory. I magnified the scan. The mass size expanded from a few kilograms to nearly a ton in under a minute. The magnetic field around it rippled weakly, not through charge but by displacement of the Earth's natural metallic dust. I had seen this pattern once before in the residue readings Clay face. I pressed the COMM line. "Batman," I said. His voice came through immediately. "I see it. Mass increase is exponential," I said. "He is awake." "I'm already in the car," he said. I switched to the secondary frequency. "Cyborg." "I've got it too," he said quickly. "It's not just a signal. I'm getting seismic tremors under Burnley Street. If that's Clayface, he's angry." "Prepare a perimeter," I said. "I will contain him." I stepped away from the console. My helmet sealed. The floor plates opened to reveal the lift. I rose through the roof hatch and into the cold air above Gotham. The skyline burned with thin light along the river. Traffic hummed distantly. I felt the metal of the city around me. Pipes, rails, wiring. All of it responded to my presence. The disturbance ahead pushed the ground metals aside in uneven waves. It was a clumsy pulse. Clayface was moving without shape, forcing his way through the old drains. Cyborg's voice came through the line again. "GCPD just picked up a report, warehouse collapse on South Grant." "That's him." "I see it," I said. The warehouse was 3 stories of concrete and sheet metal, long abandoned since the chemical fires years before. The middle section sagged inward. Dust hung in the air. From the center of the rubble, something rose, wet, brown, glistening. I descended. The air shifted as I approached. The magnetic field around the debris tightened under my control, lifting twisted steel beams into order so they would not fall again. The creature beneath them pushed upward through the gap. The mass gathered itself and formed a rough torso. A face appeared, crude but recognizable. Clayface looked at me. His features shifted in confusion before hardening into anger. "You," he growled, voice thick and uneven. "You took it." I landed 10 meters away. My boots touched the ground softly. What did I take? I asked. Myself, he said. The part of me that was left behind. I felt it. I felt it wake, then vanish. You took it. It was a hazard, I said calmly. It belonged to no one. He leaned forward. The ground beneath him darkened as his mass spread outward like liquid. It was mine. You abandoned it, I said. He roared and swung an arm the size of a tree trunk. I raised one hand. The steel girders embedded in the dirt rose and intercepted the blow. Clayface's arm struck the steel and splattered into fragments before pulling itself back together. He growled again. I will take it back. You will not, I said. He lunged. His body expanded, doubling in size. He struck again, both arms sweeping through the air. I held my ground. I pulled the girders around me into a rotating barrier. Each strike met unyielding metal. Fragments of his clay splashed and hardened as I cooled them with magnetic compression. Batman's voice entered my ear. I'm 2 minutes out. Don't let him move north. Too close to the river. I will not, I said. Clayface changed shape. His lower body liquefied, spreading wide. He dove into the ground, forcing himself through the broken floor of the warehouse. I followed the metal signatures beneath the surface. He tunneled fast, sliding through old sewer lines. I raised my arms and bent the iron pipes around him, crushing the tunnels into narrow corridors to slow him. Cyborg's signal came through. He's heading toward the substation near Burnley Junction. If he reaches the power lines, he'll fry the grid. He will not reach them, I said. I extended my senses through the metal of the sewers. The pressure wave of his movement distorted the environment. I pulled the nearest junction covers free and dropped through one of the access shafts. The air below was wet and cold. The sound of shifting mass echoed ahead. I stepped into the tunnel. A wave of sludge rushed forward. Clayface emerged again, towering in the narrow space. He filled it completely. His face reformed from the clay. You can't stop me, he said. I was made in this city. It's part of me. You were a man, I said. You lost control of what you created. He swung his arm through the tunnel. The wave of force broke concrete. I lifted both hands. The rebar inside the walls surged outward, forming a tight cage around me. The impact hit the bars and scattered mud across the corridor. Stop this, Carlo, I said sharply. You will only weaken yourself. He laughed, a wet sound that shook the tunnel. You think I care about that? The rebar behind him groaned. I pulled it forward. Thick rods of steel coiled around his body. They sank into his form. He roared and pulled back, tearing them apart. I tightened the field again, binding the metal through his mass. Each time he tore free, I replaced what he destroyed. Batman arrived through a side tunnel. He moved quickly, cloak wrapped close, using the shadows as if they were armor. He threw a series of sonic charges. The explosions were soft but precise, each one calibrated for Clayface's known frequencies. The sound made the creature's surface ripple. Cyborg's voice came through the line. I've got eyes on you through the sewer cams. He's destabilizing. I can hit him with a cold burst from the substation lines if you can push him into the open pit ahead. I glanced at Batman. Drive him forward. He nodded once and moved in. He threw another charge at the wall beside Clayface. The blast created a pressure shift that forced the creature to stumble forward. I raised both hands and pulled every metal object in the tunnel toward the creature's back pipes, bolts, reinforcement bars. They struck his form and pushed him farther. He roared and struck the wall, shattering a section of it. Beyond it lay the open drainage pit that connected to the substation's lower channel. The space widened enough for Cyborg to target him. Cyborg's voice was calm. "Ready when you are." "Now," I said. The lights in the tunnel flashed. A burst of electrical current surged through the water below. The temperature dropped instantly. Steam filled the air. Clayface screamed as his form hardened. He tried to retreat, but the metal around him clamped shut. His body froze in place, rough and solid. Batman moved forward quickly. He pressed a device against the side of the hardened mass. A small red light blinked. "Signal dampers online," he said. "Cyborg, hold the current for 30 more seconds." "Copy," Cyborg said. The current held. The clay cooled completely. The shape stopped moving. Only the faint vibration of air remained. I lowered my hands slowly. "Containment achieved," I said. Cyborg's voice came back. "I'm shutting down the lines. Power stabilized. You're clear." Batman stepped back from the frozen figure. "He'll thaw eventually," he said. "Then we relocate him before he does," I said. Cyborg dropped into the tunnel from a service hatch above. He landed near us and looked at the solidified form. "He's heavier than before," he said. "Composition shift?" "Possibly," Batman said. "Residue integration." Cyborg crouched and scanned the surface with his wrist display. "He's absorbed industrial sediment, metal filings, maybe even parts of the building. He's changing." I raised an eyebrow. "Adaptation?" "Yeah," Cyborg said. "He's learning." Batman looked at both of us. "We can't leave him here. Too close to the grid. Too many eyes on Burnley tonight." "We can move him through the maintenance corridor to the containment dock," I said. Cyborg nodded. "I'll prep a field trolley. You keep him from cracking." I extended my hand. The magnetic field wrapped around Clayface's hardened mass, lifting it gently. The strain was significant. His body contained traces of heavy elements now. I stabilized the pull across multiple points so that the structure would not fracture. Batman led the way. Cyborg cleared the path ahead, cutting power to lights and cameras to avoid drawing attention. We moved slowly, step by step, through the tunnels until we reached the containment dock near the old canal system. Cyborg opened the heavy doors. The chamber inside was dry and reinforced. It had been used before for temporary storage of toxic materials. He adjusted the temperature controls to keep it cold. I lowered Clayface's body onto the reinforced floor. The sound echoed through the room, dull and final. Batman attached 4 restraint anchors at the corners, each one connected to a sonic pulse emitter tuned to Clayface's frequency. "These will trigger automatically if he moves," he said. Cyborg sealed the main doors and activated the ventilation locks. "We're good," he said. I looked at the frozen form. "He will not stay like this for long," I said. Batman turned to me. "Long enough." Cyborg crossed his arms. "You think he really felt that piece of himself? The residue?" "He did," Batman said. "His physiology links through chemical memory. If we disturbed a fragment of his base compound, it would draw him like a reflex." "It drew him here," I said. Batman looked at the hardened figure again. "We'll analyze the residue at the cave. Maybe we can find a way to neutralize the connection." Cyborg nodded. "I'll start running models. Maybe a counteragent or a stabilizer." I stood quietly, studying the containment. The steel frame around the figure vibrated slightly from the pressure of the sonic fields. It was stable. Batman turned toward me. "You held him long enough for the field to work," he said. "Good control." "I do not lose control," I said. He gave a short nod. "That's useful." Cyborg smiled faintly. "Yeah, it is. We remained for another 10 minutes to confirm the temperature and field stability. Then Batman deactivated the secondary lights. "Leave him in the dark," he said. "He weakens without stimuli." We exited through the maintenance corridor. The cold air of the night felt cleaner after the wet tunnels. Cyborg sealed the hatch behind us. He looked toward the skyline. "I'll take the upper route back to the watchtower. I want to update the League database before Waller hears about this." "Do not name me in your report," I said. He chuckled softly. "Wouldn't dream of it." He took off into the air, disappearing into the clouds. Batman stood beside me for a moment. "Waller will try to use this," he said. "Clayface's movement gives her an excuse to intervene." "She will find no trace worth using," I said. He glanced at me. "You're sure?" "I am certain," I said. He nodded and walked toward the Batmobile parked in shadow. The engine hummed low. He entered the cockpit and drove off without another word. I lifted into the air and returned to my base. The console lights flickered on as I entered. The city's power pattern returned to balance. The line labeled Burnley, disturbance stabilized at 0. I removed my helmet and placed it on the stand beside the control seat. The faint residue of clay still clung to the lower edges of my gauntlets. I cleaned them carefully. The feed from the containment dock remained open on one screen. Clayface stayed still. His form did not move. His temperature held at -6 degrees. The sonic emitters pulsed in quiet rhythm. Cyborg sent a message through the League channel. "Containment confirmed. Temperature stable." Waller flagged Clayface activity but no details. "She doesn't know about the capture." Batman added a short reply. "Maintain silence. Report later." I typed one line and sent it to them both. "He will not rise again." Then I saved the containment logs and returned to observation. The city moved beneath me, steady, controlled, quiet. Chapter 24, Fragments in the lines. The dock feed showed a still image and a clean temperature readout. I had left it that way. The cabinet displayed -6 degrees at each corner sensor. The sonic emitters pulsed in sequence with no drift. I stood at the console and checked the bridge loads, then the river pylons, then the transit harmonics. The city's chart stayed inside its bands. At 3:11, the dock panel blinked once. The camera frame did not change. The temperature on the northeast sensor rose by ½ degree, then returned to baseline. 2 minutes later, the northwest sensor ticked up by the same amount and settled again. The emitters logged a fractional correction. The restraint anchors stayed within tolerance. I pulled the dock feed full screen and magnified the image. The hardened surface of Clayface's form looked the same. The shadows fell across the joints as before. I shifted the contrast until the edges of the splatter ridges sharpened. On the back edge near the floor, a thin seam that had not been present in the earlier survey crossed 3 centimeters of surface. It was a hairline. It followed no structural line. It ran along a material boundary. I tapped the comms. "Batman." His reply came at once. "What is it?" "Dock reading drift. Corner sensors rise in sequence by ½ degree. A seam opened at the rear surface near the floor line." "Size small," I said. "I'm on my way," he said. "Cyborg," I said. "I'm up," he said quickly. "I'll be at the dock in 4 minutes. Want me to reroute more cold?" "No," I said. "Hold until we confirm." I stared at the seam for 30 seconds without seeing movement. I switched to the vibration microphone and listened to the container. Sonic pulse bleed sounded as expected. Metal expansion creaked in low notes as temperature held under tolerance. Behind the mass, something grazed the containment floor with a soft drag. The microphones picked it up as a thin noise along steel. I opened a secondary panel and watched the burden sensors embedded beneath the slab. The weight remained constant, but it no longer sat perfectly balanced. A point load of 3 kilograms shifted toward the northeast corner and then stilled. A second point load moved toward the opposite side, then stilled. I spoke into the room. He is breaking down. Batman didn't waste time. Confirm. Multiple point loads detaching at surface, I said. They move toward the floor seams. They are very small. 1 to 3 kilograms each. They keep below the camera threshold. Hold, he said. Do not spike cold. That can crack the mass and help the brakes. Agreed, I said. I increased the magnetic sensitivity in the chamber, not to hold him. His body had little to no iron content, but to feel every iron dust particle on the floor under him. The dust moved in a line that was too neat to be air current. It dragged, settled, dragged again. The line reached the base of the wall where the floor slab met the steel. It stopped. It pressed against the seam. I opened the dock intercom. Activate floor seal Delta 1, I said. The dock's automated system injected sealant through a microvalve line at the floor wall edge. The seam filled with a thin layer of silicone. The dust trail reached it and stopped. It began to branch toward the drain grate at the far corner. Batman landed on the dock roof 20 seconds later and entered through the upper hatch. He moved around the hardened figure and knelt by the floor. He placed a thin fiber under the seam and held it. It stuck. He looked up at the camera. We have leakage at surface scale, he said. Fragments testing boundaries. Cyborg arrived, dropped through the access, and halted 2 paces from the mass. He held a compact scanner in both hands. He aimed it at the seam. Microresonant reading, he said. The fragment carries charge variation like Carlo's class. It's active. Plan, Batman said. Cyborg's eyes moved fast over data. He's making microbuds, he said. 10 to 30 per bud. They sever and crawl. They like steel dust. They like heat edges. They seek gaps. Targets, Batman said. Grates. Gearboxes. Transformers with oil troughs. Rail housings, Cyborg said. They'll hide in hot places and grow by accretions. I raised my hand. We split the grid into sectors. We make the city hostile to small pieces without harming civilians. We set magnetized catch points at drains and metal joints. We route heat away from likely refuge points. Batman nodded once. Do it. Cyborg pointed his scanner at the mass again and grimaced. He's cracking more inside the slab, he said. Your cold slowed him. It didn't stop the cellular behavior. He looked at me. We'll need a multi-layer response. I opened the grid map and drew a ring around Burnley and the adjacent industrial quarter. I tuned the field along every storm drain, subway grate, manhole ring, and maintenance seam. I set each to a mild inward pull that would collect metal dust into thin belts and keep any crawling microbuds in place. I kept the pull too low to bother anyone wearing jewelry or carrying change. I lined the belts with steel mesh inside the pipes. I altered the gravity of every stray screw on the street by a fraction so it would settle and not give any fragment a path. Batman went to the cabinet at the dock wall and opened a case of Wayne-Tech cryofoam canisters. He planted 4 along the floor perimeter and tied each to a pressure sensor. He left them closed for manual use. He pulled a low-frequency sonic stunner from a locker and placed it by the door. Cyborg adjusted the dock emitters down by a notch. If we hold him hard, he'll shatter more. I'm lowering amplitude so he doesn't stress fracture. The mass did not move. The seam at the rear barely widened and then stopped. A small bead squeezed out and dropped to the floor. It squirmed like a slug and pushed toward the drain. It dragged metal dust with it. It left a faint trail. It reached the drain seam and pressed in. It did not pass. It flattened into a thin disc and held to the steel. Cyborg watched his scanner and shook his head. "Look at this," he said. "It's parsing itself. It knows how to thin. It will rebuild when it gets mass." "Not tonight," Batman said. I drew the drain cover upward and lifted the fragment with it, letting it ride without slipping. I moved the cover to a stainless tray lined with steel wool. The fragment tried to slide away, but the fine wires trapped it. It pulled inward and held to the mesh. It seemed to rest. I set a second tray beside the first. Cyborg pointed out 3 more seams. "There," he said. "And there. And there." I pulled them the same way and laid each on a steel wool tray. I counted 6 visible microfragments. The weight readings under the slab shifted. There were more. "Next phase," Batman said. "We take the city." I spoke into the channel. "Grid adjustment. Sector Burnley to Foundry, radius 3 km. All storm drains and culverts at mild inward magnetization. All end-of-line trap boxes held by steel mesh. Substation oil channels raised temperature by 2 degrees to alter viscosity. Gearboxes at harbor cranes cooled by 2 degrees to deny expansion comfort. Subway housings set to low resonant buzz to agitate any foreign matter." Cyborg nodded, pleased. "I'll give you eyes," he said. "I'm pushing a filter into the city cameras for imbalanced motion patterns along the ground. It will pick wriggle, not wind." He typed, executed. The grid cameras fed a thin layer over the map. I watched a dozen intersections color by slow-moving dots, then clear when the filter realized they were leaves or paper. Then one dot stayed in the wrong pattern: straight line, corner, straight line, pause. It moved along a curb. It migrated toward a manhole that sat a block from my dock. "Target 1, Cyborg said, marking it. I pulled the manhole cover up and slid a net under the rim. The fragment stuck to the steel and came with it. I set it on a tray beside the others. 2 more dots appeared and faded as stray items. Then 5 more blinked at once in different blocks. Batman's voice stayed level. "We cannot chase all of them by hand." "We do not need to," I said. "We set a sieve." I extended the city field along the curb iron for 8 blocks and coaxed the iron filings into ribbons that ran along the concrete. I sent the ribbons toward specific culverts I controlled. I reinforced those culverts with steel mesh and sealed their side leaks. I opened access at 2 service hatches and set a collection tray. I watched the dots drift with the ribbons and settle. 4 of the 5 reached the culvert and stuck. 1 reversed and headed up a stair toward a rail crossing. "Rail," Batman said. "Stop that one." "It is mine," I said. I raised the crossing gate and slid a flat steel plate under the board as if a maintenance crew had left it by accident. The fragment met it and sat. I made the plate's grain rough with a thought. It bonded enough to hold. I slid the plate into a tray and sealed it. Cyborg's scanner lit at the dock again. "More from the body," he said. "They're finding low points. They're heading for the steel." "Put the mass on a steel pallet," Batman said. "Let the pieces settle where we can reach them." We eased the main body onto a low pallet with minimal noise. I placed steel wool wads around the legs of the pallet where the floor met it. New fragments dropped and stuck to those places. I lifted each into a tray. I set them in rows and numbered them, A01 through A12. Cyborg looked at my rows and huffed a small breath that sounded like satisfaction. "I'll make you a cabinet," he said. "We need controlled temp and low vibration." He pushed a portable rack from the wall. He set the trays into the drawers and clipped temperature lines. He set the cabinet to -8 degrees and slow air circulation. "This keeps them inert," he said. I watched the city map. New dots appeared in 3 clusters: the old shipyard, the subway maintenance spur near Dixon, and the substation oil trench on Low Street. The fragments were moving with more purpose. 3 clusters, Batman said. We split. Shipyard is mine, I said. I know the cranes well. I'll take the subway spur, Batman said. I'll handle the trench, Cyborg said. I can use local controls. I lifted into the air from the dock and moved in a low arc toward the yard. The cranes stood like quiet towers above empty slips. Their gearboxes and static lines were cool. I had lowered their temperatures earlier. I raised them by 1 degree to measure response. 3 of the gearboxes returned a friction signature that did not match metal, oil, or grit. The signal sat at the boundary where a seal met a casing. I coaxed the seal out and found a smear of brown compound wedged in the lip. I placed a magnetized scraper at the edge and dragged the smear onto a kit tray. It left the metal with reluctance. It stretched thin, then retreated to a lump and sat. I cooled it with a small controlled breeze and set it in a steel wool bed. I moved to the next gearbox and repeated the process. 4 trays filled in clean cycles. At the 5th crane, the smear did not sit. It thinned and tried to dive through a bolt hole. I closed the hole with a turn of the bolt. It slid along the casing and sought the line. I bent the cable inward and let the smear run to the low point, where a nest of filings waited. It clung there. I lifted it away. I placed the 5th tray in a portable case and sent it down the invisible line to the dock with a controlled tug. The case slid along air like a cart on a smooth floor and entered through the upper hatch. Batman watched from a camera and moved it into the cabinet. Subway, he said into the comms. His voice was low and tight. I have fragments on the maintenance car. They took the heat from the brake housing. I am using cryofoam in small amounts. They spatter when hit. They get thinner. I have to scrape them with steel every time. Use steel wool directly, Cyborg said. They choose it. You choose it first. Noted, Batman said. Cyborg's voice came faster. Trench is worse, he said. I have 5 fragments in transformer oil. They are insulated. They are feeding off heat. I can lower temperature, but the cold will thicken oil and limit flow. The pieces are moving toward the core wall. Redirect the oil, I said. I can't without draining into a basin, he said. Drain into a basin, I said. I will hold the fragments where the stream meets the air. He opened the valves and the oil ran along a table to a low reservoir. I raised a fine mesh across the stream and drew steel filings into it. I vibrated the mesh enough to keep the oil moving without letting the fragments pass. They tried to thin and slide. They failed and clung to the rough wires. I lifted them and set them into trays that Batman had warmed just enough to keep the oil fluid but not hot enough to help the fragments. In the dock, Batman worked without waste. I watched his hands through the camera while I held my sieve in the trench. He placed each tray in a numbered slot. He wiped the rim each time with a solvent wipe designed for lab use. He kept order even while he moved fast. Cyborg grunted softly into the channel. Last trench fragment gone. Oil flow restored. Transformer output steady. Good, Batman said. I finished at the shipyard. 8 shards sat in my case. I sent it to the dock. I moved to the river wall where a small outfall showed a slow line of brown. The fragment had chosen a poor path. It clung to algae and grit. I lifted the outfall grate and coaxed the smear into a tray. It fought half-heartedly and then rested. Cyborg's filter brought up 2 more dots, a rooftop AC unit in Burnley and a stack of steel drums behind a warehouse. Batman took the drums. I took the AC unit. The fragment sat on a copper coil that had heated enough to attract it. I lowered the heat and scraped it into a fine bed. By 4:20, the board displayed no more moving dots. The dock cabinet held 32 trays. The main mass at the center had lost less than 5% of weight. It would not notice the change until it thawed. It did not thaw. Batman stood by the cabinet with his hands on the edges of 2 drawers. He exhaled a breath that sounded like focus, not relief. "We hold these until we decide permanent action," he said. Cyborg reviewed his logs and nodded. "We caught them all in the district. I don't see any signatures outside the ring." "Expand the ring watch to the entire city," Batman said. "Lower sensitivity to avoid noise. Keep the filter alive." "I can do that," Cyborg said. I returned to the dock and stood before the cabinet. The trays sat behind their doors with faint frost along the edges. I felt each fragment through the steel as a low, slow pulse. None of them pushed. None of them tried to bond to each other through the metal. Batman looked at me. "Disposition," he said. "We separate them permanently," I said. "We place each in its own sealed steel capsule with steel wool interior and controlled cold. We keep them in a secured location and monitor for phase change. After analysis, we destroy them in a way that leaves no chemical trace." Cyborg tilted his head. "Neutralizing agents," he said. "Yes," Batman said. "I have gel formulas that break the bonds in Carlo's matrix without reactive residue. They were developed after an incident with a copycat. We never used them widely because they can cause collateral burn if applied in volume." "We will not apply in volume," I said. "We will apply inside capsules under controlled conditions." Cyborg smiled a little. "I like it." Batman tapped the cabinet. "We move now," he said. "We do not give Waller time to sniff around." Clayface made noise. "It will be on a scanner." "We do this in the cave," I said. He nodded. "Agreed." Cyborg swung open the cabinet and wheeled it onto the trolley. Batman secured the doors. I raised a shield of steel around it and lifted. We moved through the service shafts again, then the tunnels, then the hatch. The cave accepted us with the same calm as before. Alfred had already prepared the lab. He stood by the door with a quiet look that said he understood timing and weight. He guided us in and had 3 steel capsules ready on a bench with clear screw lids and one-way valves. He had written neat numbers on each in black ink. He wore gloves. He said nothing. Batman lifted the first tray carefully. He tilted it by a fraction and let the lump slide into the capsule. He closed the lid and twisted until it latched. He handed it to me. I set it in a rack and fixed a cold line to it. We repeated it 32 times. No fragment acted. One made a slow wave at the lid, then settled. Alfred sealed the last lid with a torque tool. He placed the tool aside as if it were a teacup. Cyborg prepared the neutralizing gel with care. He checked the catalyst twice and looked up. "We test on 1, he said. Batman nodded. "Small dose." Cyborg unclipped the line, released pressure, opened the capsule port, and injected a measured amount of gel through the valve. The fragment shuddered, then stopped. The gel turned a different shade of brown. It thickened. It did not move again. I felt nothing through the capsule's steel. Alfred checked the temperature and locked the valve. He looked at the effect and allowed a small, satisfied sound. "Workmanlike," he said. Batman injected a second capsule and watched the readout. Same result. He wrote a mark on the lid. "We will not do all tonight," he said. "We will document and proceed with caution." Cyborg scanned the first neutralized capsule and showed the line. No residual charge pattern. "Dead mass," he said. He looked relieved. I stood with my hand on the bench and watched the others at their tasks. Cyborg wiped the injector ports with care. Batman logged each capsule. Alfred cleaned the bench with a clean cloth until it was dry and without smear. There was order in small things. It mattered. Batman finished the log and turned to me. "We kept it contained," he said. I met his eyes. "Yes." Cyborg slumped against the bench for a second and smiled without showing teeth. "We kept a lot of it contained," he said. "I'd call this a win." Alfred glanced at the clock and then at Batman. "I believe so," he said quietly. "I will prepare a small meal for you." He left before Batman could refuse. Cyborg tapped his forearm. "I'll go back to the city and keep the filter watching. I'll also build an early alarm for any low-mass movement in heat zones." He looked at me. "I'll share it with your system as an output only." "Do it," I said. He gave me a crisp nod and left through the cave's vertical exit. Batman walked to the edge of the platform and looked over the water below. He stood straight and still. He did not speak for several seconds. I stepped closer. "Waller will send a question," I said. "She will request details about a disturbance in Burnley." "She will not get them," he said. "Good," I said. He glanced at the capsules. "We will finish the neutralization this week under lab protocol. You will have a copy of the procedure and the log." "Send it," I said. He nodded. "You held the city grid while we chased pieces," he said. "Your sieve worked." "It will work again," I said. He looked at the clock once more and moved toward the stairs. "We go back," he said. I left the cave and returned to my base. The generator's tone was unchanged. The grid showed no new dots on the filter. The dock showed the main mass resting on the pallet with less weight than before. The cabinet was gone. The numbers were neat. Cyborg pinged. "Filter live across the city," he said. "I set a tone for you and Batman only. You'll hear a low chime if anything moves the wrong way below 3 kilograms." "Good," I said. He paused. "By the way, Waller's watchers tagged a general disturbance near the canals," he said. "She did not get details. She sent a low-level request to Gotham PD for environmental impact. Gordon threw it in a file and set a review for next week." "She will not see more," I said. "Not unless we slip," he said. "We will not slip," I said. He laughed under his breath. "I know." He signed off. I checked the bridge again, then the rail yards, then the harbor cranes. I noticed a tiny vibration in a crane and corrected it. I tightened a panel that buzzed in a way that would irritate a worker on a second shift. I tuned a rail section that would have sung in the morning and bothered the sleep of a child near the line. I filed none of it. I did it. The dock camera showed the pallet. The slab held. The lines were still. I stood with my palm on the steel ring of the console and listened to the room. The grid stayed true. Chapter 25, The Van on 11th. The dock cabinet was still. The pallet held weight without drift. The sonic emitters stayed at their assigned levels. I stood before the console and read the full city map one more time. The sieve layer I had drawn across drains, grates, and seams remained balanced at low pull. It caught nothing new. The bridge loads sat inside limits. The harbor cranes moved on slow cycles. Batman's message arrived on the private channel. "Transport window opens in 40 minutes, he said. "We move 3 neutralized capsules to the foundry for disposal. Route is secured, cover is maintenance." "Understood," I said. He paused. "Noise levels are normal," he added, and closed the line. I watched the cabinet feed and checked each tray once more. 2 capsules were neutralized, 1 more waited under controlled cold, ready for gel. The others sat inert. Alfred's handwriting marked the lids in clean black ink. The camera clock ticked. At 1:52, the sieve layer reported a pattern change. It was small. It did not come from a drain or a grate. It showed as a line of steady nulls crossing the street south of the canal, each null spaced 3 meters apart, moving at walking speed. The absences crossed the curb, passed along a wall, and stopped in a shadowed alcove behind a closed storefront. They remained there for 7 seconds and then moved again. I opened a tighter view. There was no metal motion, no heat signature worth naming, no sound beyond a delivery truck a block away. The nulls held rhythm. They were too regular to be random. The pattern matched the cloak from the Narrow's intrusion, adapted with better hopping. I spoke into the COMM. "Batman. I'm here," he said immediately. "Anti-sieve cloaks in Burnley," I said. 5 signatures. Line spacing regular. They stopped, then moved again. "They are practicing against the field." "Argus," he said. "Location." I marked the alley and sent it. "They are moving toward 11th, I said. "Confirmed," he said. "I'll change the route." "Cyborg," I said into the second channel. "Online," he answered. "Build a shadow fleet path for a city maintenance van," I said. "We will lift through the east tunnel and come out at Ogden. Spoof telemetry to show a tire change on 11th. If Argus watches city trucks, we give them something to look at." "Copy," he said. His hands moved. "Telemetry spoof active. Public Works van 612 shows a slow roll at Ogden, a stop at 11th, and a flagged maintenance check. No map-wide alert." I opened the dock hatch and lifted the 3 capsules into a steel frame box lined with wool and cold plates. I sealed the lid and set the box on a low pallet. The weight settled without rattle. Batman arrived at the upper hatch and dropped down with a short rope, cape tucked, cowl silent. He checked the lid, checked the seals, and looked at me. "We go quiet," he said. "We always do," I said. Cyborg's voice came through the link. "I'll be 3 blocks up with a bird's eye view. I won't light anything. I'll just watch with passive." "Stay out of sight," Batman said. "I know," he said. We moved the pallet through the cargo tunnel beneath the canal. The corridor smelled like clean concrete and machine oil. Batman unlocked the far door with his code and pushed it open. The service bay on the other side was empty apart from a city van on a low lift, hood up, marked with the right number. Alfred stepped out from behind it in a plain coat. He looked at us both, said nothing, and opened the rear doors. We slid the frame box into the van and locked it to anchor points with steel straps. Alfred handed Batman a log clipboard that would pass a casual inspection. Batman placed it beside the seat and checked the sight lines between the front windshield and a mounted camera. The feed showed day-old footage of empty streets. Alfred had looped it for cover. "I will take the first leg," Alfred said in his unruffled way. Batman held his gaze for a second. "Short," he said. "Of course," Alfred said. He climbed behind the wheel. Batman took the passenger side without the cape showing. I stepped into the narrow space and sat on the frame directly behind the seats. I laid my hand on the steel box to feel its temperature and weight. It held steady. The van rolled out of the bay into the street. The night was quiet. Most of the windows were dark. Streetlights hummed at the planned pitch. A patrol car passed 2 blocks over at normal speed and did not look our way. Cyborg's voice came low. "I have 5 cloaks moving in front of you, sticking to alleys. They're using the shadows from the lamp poles to mask wrong edges on cameras. Someone trained them on how we look." "Yes," Batman said. "They are not wearing metal," I said. "They carry composite weapons and ceramic fasteners. They did their homework." "Waller's list includes people who learn fast," Batman said. The van turned onto Ogden. The foundry sat 4 minutes away by this path. I registered a signal from the upper lane as a delivery truck idled at a red light. 2 cloaks broke off, moved around its blind side, and nested against its exhaust vent to hide heat. Their pattern remained tight. They waited, then stepped lightly across the intersection, keeping a wall between themselves and us. Second pair moving to flank, Cyborg said. Fifth stayed behind on the previous block. He's the relay. Kill the relay, Batman said. I shaped the magnetic field around the relay without touching him. There was no metal. I used his environment. I turned a locked shutter bolt 2 stores down, slid the bar inside the track, and produced a small, sharp scrape. He turned his head. I dropped a manhole cover across the street by 1 centimeter and let it strike the ring. The sound traveled along the curb. He shifted again and stepped exactly where I wanted him onto a thin cover plate over an old cable channel. The plate flexed. I pulled the support tab sideways. He slid halfway into the slot and caught himself on both palms. He made no sound. He would be delayed. Cyborg sounded almost pleased. Nice. We prefer he lived to write that report, Batman said. Yes, I said. We reached 11th Street. The van slowed to the target speed. It did not stop under the camera's view, it pulled as if to the curb, then straightened and continued. 2 cloaks had anticipated a stop. They moved to the edge of a recessed loading bay and crouched. One lifted a composite thrower that would fire a net of conductive thread with a chemical freeze. The other held a ceramic hook. They were quick. They had a plan for a normal driver. I adjusted the iron rebar in the sidewalk beneath the loading bay by 2 centimeters. The concrete near the edge fractured with a quiet crunch. The cloak closest to the edge shifted weight and sank to his shin. He worked to withdraw in silence. The second cloak reached to help. I kept the rebar still. They did not fall. They lost timing. Batman to Alfred, continue. Alfred turned at the next block, obeyed a long yellow light that stayed yellow longer than it normally would because Cyborg had models to stall it. The 2 cloaks on the wrong timing missed their window and did not fire the net. The van moved ahead. Cyborg spoke. Third cloak passed to the roofline on your right. He's carrying a ceramic pack the size of a helmet. It could be a jammer. He will try to break our comms, Batman said. He will try to confuse the thermostat in the box, I said. Batman nodded. Remove him. I will neutralize without spectacle, I said. I lifted a single threaded rod from the roof's HVAC housing and rotated it a quarter turn. A small metal corner bracket shifted free and slid down the slope. The cloak reached to stop it, touched it, and remembered too late that it was metal. His glove had a fiber seam with a hidden conductive stripe for a different piece of gear. The current that ran through it was minor. He jerked and dropped the ceramic pack. It slid into the open drain at the roof edge and disappeared, breaking apart in the fall. The cloak backed away and stayed behind a vent. He would not reappear. We approached the long straight between 11th and the Foundry Road. Cyborg's voice shifted in tone, a sign that something changed. 2 vehicles started up on parallel streets, he said. Composite bodies. Electric. Low noise. They're staying with you at a 2-block parallel. Argus chase pods. Composite bodies, Batman said, annoyed. She's learning. Yes, I said. They will try to cut ahead and block narrow passage. Cyborg added, the Foundry access road has a weight sensor and a gate. It's metal. Open it early, I said. I can, he said. But if they read us accelerating, they'll accelerate too. We break their rhythm, Batman said. No sirens. No crash. Just one mistake. The 2 pods speed matched our van without line of sight. They used drone relays from back angles. I detected 2 lenses peeking over windows. I ruined the first lens by turning the steel window frame against it. The image would show a smear. I prevented the second lens from focusing by adding a faint vibration to the frame under it. It would see static lines. We reached the last large intersection before the access road. A city bus appeared at the perfect second, guided by Cyborg's calibration. It entered the box and stopped across 2 lanes with a minor hesitation as if the driver checked a mirror twice. The first pod miscalculated its path, honked once quietly and had to stop. The second pod chose the opposite lane, found a delivery truck stuck at a low turn angle rehearsed by the driver, and braked as well. Alfred took the turn. The van rolled down the access road at a perfectly normal speed. The foundry gate looked closed from afar. It was already open by 6 centimeters. The hinges made no noise because I held them. We passed through the wedge, and the gate closed behind us. The road beyond curved behind a wall. A worker with a cigarette at the far end looked at his phone and did not glance up. Batman spoke. "Stage 1 complete," he said. "We deliver and complete disposal." He looked back at me. "We were not followed." "No," I said. "But Waller will reposition her unit for the return." "Yes," he said. "Cyborg." "I'll give you a different van coming out," Cyborg said, voice steady. 612 returns to the yard on paper. 735 takes the long route with an empty crate and 2 trash bags. If someone tails, they tail trash. Batman's mouth moved a fraction. "Good," he said. The foundry foreman met us just inside the main bay door. He wore hearing protection and a stained jacket. He checked the clipboard Alfred handed him. He did not read names. He read weight and hazard class. Alfred had marked the forms with care. The man nodded once and led us to a sealed furnace. The room was hot. The floor vibrated gently under constant work. The furnace mouth glowed in a uniform way that spoke of even burn and thick refractory. The foreman opened the inner hatch. Batman opened the steel box, checked the capsule seals, and handed the neutralized capsules to the man in order. The foreman cracked one lid to verify inert status, then closed it. Alfred kept the clipboard steady as the man signaled the crane. We did not watch them drop. There was no reason. The process would be complete by procedure. Batman initialed the disposal in small block letters, clear and firm. Alfred thanked the man and stepped back toward the van. Cyborg's voice returned. First Argus pair moved to the far side of the plant. They split. One went high and one went to a side entrance. I am feeding them camera feeds from last week's night shift. They are moving in an empty building while today's crew works behind them. Keep them there, Batman said. For how long? Cyborg asked. As long as you can, Batman said. Alfred drove the van out the far gate. The world outside still looked asleep. We moved along the back road lined with stored steel beams. They were clean and heavy. I felt them in the air like a clean line. I lifted my gloved hand and tapped the van's metal light with my knuckles once. The sound was light. Alfred glanced at me in the mirror. Batman adjusted the seatbelt across his chest. He watched the rear camera. The far gate opened. We moved through and out into the street. Alfred went right down a block, then left. He matched the speed of a slow sanitation vehicle until it turned. Cyborg spoke. The parallel pods returned to their route. They are confused. They are looking for your van by number, and they are reading the tag from 612 at the yard. They will take a minute to switch to eyes only. That is our minute, Batman said. The van turned down a narrow lane that led to a different service bay near the water. Alfred parked, turned the engine off, and looked at us. I will take this back to the yard, he said. Go, Batman said. No extra routes. Straight. Understood, Alfred said. He drove away with a controlled, unhurried motion. The service bay door opened without a sound. The room inside was dark but clean. I slid the empty frame box to the floor and set the straps back in their brackets. Batman walked to a small office and shook hands with a man who kept his eyes down. He returned and looked at me. Argus will realize they lost this round, he said. They will try a lift on return or they will try a lift at the cave. They will not find the cave, I said. They will try to find the part of the path between docks and yard, he said. We replace the route every time. We never repeat. Agreed, I said. Cyborg cut in. They just asked for a drone window. Waller's code. She is using a municipal pretext infrared leak detection over the canal. Blind it, Batman said. I am, Cyborg said. His tone shifted. She attached a telemetry hook on a city lift schedule so officers would think it's real. She's careful. She has to be careful here, Batman said. She knows I will push back. When she uses a public pretext, she thinks she has the right, I said. She thinks the words make it true, Batman said. Cyborg finished the override. Drone path rejected by weather control gust warnings, he said. No flight. Good, Batman said. We left the bay and walked toward the canal on foot. The water looked flat and dark. The steel railing along the edge had a missing screw on one corner. I put it back in place. Batman listened to the street with an old habit that had never left him. Pods moved on. The cloaks withdrew, he said. They will write a report about a vanished van, I said. Waller will read it and ask why they failed, he said. Then she will adjust. Cyborg again. I just watched her switch teams in Bloodhaven, he said. She called the first run a dry test. She pretends she did not lose. She lost, I said. She will not admit it, Batman said. We do not care what she admits, I said. He gave a short, approving sound that might almost be humor. No, he said. We returned to the base by separate paths. I moved through the air above quiet rooftops. I dropped into the shaft and stepped onto the platform. The generator sound matched what it should. The map showed no moving dots. The dock pallet held the main mass of clay face, unchanged. The foundry disposal was logged in my copy of the record with initials in the right place. I checked the seals on the remaining capsules still in the cabinet in the cave via the secured link. Alfred had placed a cloth over the cabinet lights to dim the room for the rest of the night. Each capsule's temperature read steady. Batman had left a note in the lab log, Phase 2 tomorrow. I returned to the console and expanded the sieve layer. I folded it into a new pattern with randomized intervals so Argus could not map it cleanly. I reduced the strength at roads where bus routes ran so passengers would not notice the wrong Klingon coins to cuffs or pins. I increased it by a trace at culverts where fragments might prefer to hide. Cyborg pinged me with a small file. I opened it. It contained the telemetry from the Argus pods, delayed. He had labeled points of minor pride with short notes. Bus delay here. Mirror flicker here. Drain kit, gone. I read them once and archived them. Batman sent one line. List of legacy sites incoming from Lucius first set only. Send it, I said. The file arrived. It was short. 2 sites were marked with clean closures. One site in the Narrows had altered audit stamps. He wrote, not my signature. Breach, I said into the link. Possibly, he said. We check it quietly. Tomorrow, I said. Yes, he said. The console stayed steady. I drew my attention back to the edges of the city and kept it there for an hour. It stayed clean. The sieve caught nothing new. The bridges carried their weight. The cranes finished their last job and parked for the shift change. The people slept. I held it the way it needed to be held. At 4:37, GCPD radio reported a noise complaint on a block near 11th. A cat had knocked over a trash lid. 2 officers responded and told a man to go home. It mattered only because it was quiet again. Cyborg checked in one more time. I'm leaving the decoy truck telemetry up for another hour, he said. If Argus records it, they will log a fake pattern. Then we change the pattern again. Do that, I said. He signed off. I looked at the helmet on the stand, picked it up, and set it back in place. The dock feed remained unchanged. The cabinets in the cave glowed with low diodes under Alfred's cloth. The foundry's furnace temperature recorded the discretes it should record. I put my hand on the steel ring at the center of the console and held it there while I counted a slow set of breaths. The metal under my palm was cool. The field matched me. The city stayed within my values.